Hey guys, Probable1701 here, and today we are going to be looking at the top 8 Third Doctor stories. And I know 8 seems like an unusual number, but Pertwee has 24 stories in his original run, and I haven't seen all of those. There are 4 stories that I haven't seen, and 1 that I haven't completely seen, because I only got partway through the Time Monster before I stopped. So 5 stories I haven't completely seen, leaving only 19 stories that I have. And a top 5 didn't seem like enough, but a top 10 seemed like too many. So I had to kind of find that happy spot in between, and 8 works for me. I told myself 8 with no honorable mentions. 8. So I made a list of 8 stories that I think are the Third Doctor's top stories. And I'm going to start off with his first story, Spearhead from Space. I think Spearhead from Space does so many things right. It's a great post-regeneration story. It does a great job introducing people to this new Doctor. While he's bedridden a little bit, he gets up pretty early on. I think by episode 2, he's out and moving around really well. And it does a good job of showing just how different the Third Doctor is to the Second Doctor, the contrast between them. And it does a good job of introducing us to the Unit family and to Liz and getting us used to this new format. Because that's another thing it had to do. It had to get us used to a totally new format for the show. Something similar to the Invasion. And it does a very good job of setting up the new status quo with him being exiled on Earth. Plus it introduced Doctor Who to color. And how beautiful it is. The colors really pop. And due to it being shot entirely on film, it's the only classic Doctor Who story that can be shown in true HD, and I never got to see the Blu-ray release of it. I own the special edition on DVD, but I've never seen it on Blu-ray. But I've seen snips of it on YouTube on Blu-ray, and it looks gorgeous. It looks like a James Bond movie from like the 60s. It looks really, really good. So I'm looking forward to that season 7 box set coming out, so I'll have it on Blu-ray. Also, I love the Autons. I think the Autons are absolutely fantastic, and I do believe this is a Robert Holmes script. I believe Spearheads is a Robert Holmes script. I know Terror of the Autons is a Robert Holmes script, but I'm pretty sure Spearhead's a Robert Holmes script, which wouldn't surprise me because it is awesome. I love the Autons as a character. It does a really good job of rebooting the show, basically, for everyone. Just jumping on board. Next on the list is Inferno, which is my favorite Pertwee story and one of my favorite episodes of Doctor Who. I reviewed it recently and I talked about it in depth there, so I won't go into too much here. But I love that it fills out its 7 parts really well. I don't think it has any pacing issues. I think it never drags. It's 7 parts, it never drags. It's a story that if I start it, I'm going to finish it. I can't just watch 1 or 2 episodes and then come back a day or 2 later. If I sit down to watch Inferno, I'm watching all of Inferno. And it does such a good job balancing and juggling everything that's going on in the story. Because there's a lot of different things happening in the story that all tie together in it. But the story does a good job juggling them. I love the Doctor in this parallel Earth. I love the very Germans won World War II feeling that this Earth has, and getting to watch all of the actors play these darker versions of themselves, like the brigade leader and the militaristic Liz Shaw, and the only a few shades darker Benton. I really enjoy that, and you can tell the actors are having fun doing that. I like the guy playing Stallman because he's doing a good job as an actor. I like him. I like the Primoids. I really love Inferno. It's very seldom I've seen all of the elements of a story come together so well like they do here. It's well written and well executed. Story I've always loved. I love the Third Doctor here. I love Joe here. I love the idea of time travel and not being able to change history if you're part of it, as the 11th Doctor would later say, and how the rogue agents who are going back in time kind of caused all the problems in the first place. I love everything about the story. The special edition just makes the execution of the story live up to it. I love the added laser effects. And I love the redone Dalek voices, because the Dalek voices in the original are pretty terrible. So having Nicholas Briggs come in and do them, it really adds a lot to the story. And because of that, it makes it really rewatchable. It's my second favorite Dalek story of the decade behind Genesis. Day of the Daleks is always a fun one. It's one I like to go back to quite often. I love having a story where a special edition really makes the story live up to the script. It's always a phenomenal watch. I knew when I was making this list I was either going to have only Silurians or Sea Devils on here, and it was hard to pick which one because I love both stories. Sea Devils, I think, is the better story over the course of the whole story. I find it more interesting to watch. Silurians wins out because I love the ending. I love that final scene with the Doctor and Liz when the Brigadier blows up the entrance to the cave and the Doctor has his, that's murder moment. I love that whole bit. That is the ending that Warriors of the Deep wanted to have and failed miserably at. That is the ending that Orphan 55 wanted to have and failed miserably at. But it pulls it all successfully here in Silurians. The rest of the story is fine. I think it's a good 7-parter, especially toward the end when you have everything with the pandemic breakout, which is definitely relevant in today's world. That's an episode I don't think they'd show on TV now just because it might irk some people. But, the whole pandemic, when you see people dropping like flies in the subway and stuff, and then the one guy who was originally the kind of not patient zero, but the guy who took it into London, when you see him just kind of fall out on the railing. Very graphic, very, very graphic. And then I like the story in that the Silurians aren't necessarily bad. They see themselves as the original owners of the planet. And watching the Doctor figure that out. I like how the Doctor's not even afraid of him. How in that first episode, he's like, hello, to shake hands with, are you a Silurian? I love that. It's a very Doctor thing to do. And how over the course of the story, the Doctor is trying to help them. He's trying to make peace. He's trying to get these races to coexist. That's very much the Doctor. This is, the third Doctor is very much a Doctor who's not going to do, triple genocide like more recent Doctors I could mention. He's going to try to get these races to coexist. Even in Sea Devils, when he ends up having to blow up the Sea Devils, he says flat out, I'm sorry. He doesn't want to have to do that. He just doesn't have much of a choice. So I find over the course of the stories, Sea Devils to probably be better overall. But I like the ending of Silurians. I love that ending scene so much that it just edges it out and makes its way onto the list. Number 5 is Mind of Evil. I really like Mind of Evil. I kind of think of it as a sequel to Inferno, since it really does deal with the Doctor having to deal with the after effects of Inferno. Plus, it's only like 2 stories after Inferno, too. It's early on in season 8. I think the Master is really good in this story. He's his very methodical 12 steps ahead self. I like the idea of the Keller machine. It's a fascinating concept and a terrifying concept. And the effect of when people are dying by their own fears is really neat. That scene when you just see flames fill the screen and Pertwee, that's, especially when you're like, this was 1971? That's impressive how good it looks. The colorization process isn't quite as good as some of the other stories. You can kind of see the black and white kind of trying to almost bleed through in places. But it's still just impressive that we have the story in color at all, so I'm not going to complain. A couple quibbles aside, like when the one guy hallucinates, he sees the Chinese dragon, looks a little naffed. But other than that, I think it's done really well. I think the actors all do a good job, the side characters. This is interesting because they actually did manage to get some of the Oriental casting done for some of the characters in that, 2 of the characters in that. Although I think the Oriental woman in it, I think she's somebody involved's wife. I think, if I remember correctly, somebody involved in the production. I think she was their wife, if I've got that right. I'm not sure. But she does a great job. I actually really enjoy her in the story. Seeing her kind of try to break the control sometime of the Master. It's really, really neat. And I love the prison location, too. Oh, that prison location is good. I love some of the prison fights. And then the unit fight in the prison is also really well done. The director did a good job here. I know he also directed Silurian. It's a shame that he went over budget with this story and was never invited back to direct another one, because I think it's a really good story. My favorite season 8 story. Next on the list is The Three Doctors. I love The Three Doctors. It's my favorite multi-doctor story. I've talked about it before. Omega's a little over the top, but he kind of has to be since you never really see his face for, well, obvious reasons in the story. So he has that very booming voice. That's a really good booming voice. Oh, man. That scream of anguish when he realizes why he can't ever leave, and he's like, that's perfect. I love that scream of frustration. Love the bickering between Troughton and Pertwee, the second and third Doctors. They are phenomenal together. I always love Troughton and Pertwee together. They're just so much fun, either in the show or in real life. They're so much fun. That opening scene when Troughton, or not opening, but the scene when Troughton first shows up in the TARDIS is one of my favorite scenes in all of Doctor Who. It's a song by the Beatles. Oh, how does it go? Oh, do be quiet. I love The Three Doctors. It's a fun little romp. The Brigadier is a little pantomimey in it, but other than that, it's a really fun romp. It's nice to see Benton get to have a really active role in it too, and get to let him and the Brigadier see the inside of the TARDIS. I love that. Number 7, I have The Green Death. This is one, naturally, I think when people are trying to explain to modern Who fans Cliff Note stories you need to hit, this is one that's on the list. You know, the one with the maggots. First off, the maggots are really well realized on screen. I have to admit that. The maggots look really good. That's some impressive practical effects. Some of the CSO work, not so impressive, but we'll let that go. And then the fully grown fly thing is very, very naff. But the writing is there. I love the writing. I love everything with the boss. The character, the boss. Ha! The boss. That is right, Doctor. Ha! I love that. And how the computer is pretty much taking over the people who are supposed to be controlling it. It's controlling them now. That's pretty impressive. It's a neat little, I think it's a neat little premise for the 1970s where, you know, with Skynet and everything in today's world, you know, that's kind of an old hat. But I think for the time in like 1970, 2 or 3, I think that's a pretty impressive little concept. And then, of course, Joe's departure is one of the saddest departures in all of Doctor Who. And the third Doctor's reaction to that is one of the reasons why John is just one of the best Doctors to ever play. Just one of the best actors to ever play the Doctor, and the third Doctor is one of the best Doctors in my opinion. I love how John does that exit scene at the end, just without a word right at the end. How he just walks out and goes into the sunset. And that's not only how that story is, that's how the season ends. What a note. It's an interesting way to end the season. It's a really, really good story. I rewatched it not too long ago, and I always enjoy a rewatch of The Green Death. And number 8 is Carnival of Monsters. I like Carnival of Monsters. I think it could be the most underrated. I don't know if underrated is the right word. I think it's the one masterpiece people might not realize. When people, again, modern Who fans are kind of hitting the cliff notes of the popular classic Who stories, I think Carnival of Monsters might be one they miss. Like, they'll see the Three Doctors, they'll see the Green Death, but I could see them not knowing about Carnival of Monsters. And it's a shame because Carnival of Monsters is fantastic. First off, we have Ian Marter in it as a different character. This is before he becomes Harry Sullivan, and he's good in it. I really like the concept of them ending up in this little viewing machine with all of these different little areas in it. I love the dreshigs. The dreshigs, is that what they're called? The little dragon things, the dreshigs or something like that. I like them, that they're just completely animalistic and move on instinct, and they're so deadly. You know, kind of like, you know, a velociraptor in Jurassic Park. Although I guess technically they're actually pretty intelligent. But, you know, once these things get your scent, they will follow you anywhere. I like that. I love the planet they're on, the alien race, the blue, grayish people. I like that they have their own manner of speaking when they say, like, this one, such and such. They have this very unique form of dialect and how they talk. And I enjoy that. I like that. I like that extra care was given to the episode. It really is a fun watch. It's nice to see the Doctor with his ability to travel in time and space back, kind of out doing otherworldly things now, and you get to at least have a couple adventures with Joe. You know, off of Earth before she leaves. It's just a really good story that I think gets lost in the shuffle sometimes. It's one that, us Classic Who fans know about, but I think it's one of the ones people who are more familiar with the modern series might have missed out on. And it's a shame, because it's such a good story. So that is my top 8 Pertwee stories. I would like to know what you think of these stories and what your top 8 would be if you were ranking your top 8 Pertwee stories. Keeping in mind, I haven't seen all of his stories yet. I still need to see Invasion of the Dinosaurs. I'm looking forward to that. Other things to do, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon. If you like what I do and would like to contribute to what I do, there is a link to my Patreon down in the description below. Want to give a shout out to the 5th Doctor, a top tier patron. I really appreciate his support. And a special thank you to all of my other patrons as well, and to all of my subscribers. If you're interested in my Patreon, there are several exclusive videos on there. For instance, I have ranked the Masters recently, from worst to best, all of the TV Masters. If you're interested in knowing my thoughts on that, that is on my Patreon at the $10 tier and above. I also have an exclusive review for the Idiot's Lantern up on my Patreon for, I believe that's any of my Patrons, I believe, have access to that one, even at the $2 level. I also do polls for reviews I'll be doing. I have a poll up now for which classic Doctor Who story I will be rewatching sometime this month. And that's between like The Ultimate Foe, The Brain of Morbius, Time Flight, The Mind of Evil, and Enemy of the World. I remembered all 5 of them this time. Go me. So if there's one of those you'd like to see me review, you can pop over there. That poll is available for anyone at any tier level. And also video requests. People at, like, I believe it's usually the $10 tier and up get access to a set amount of video requests per month. If that's something you're interested in. If not, that's fine. I'm just glad to have you here watching. I certainly appreciate that. After all, most importantly, thank you for watching.